Hello, third grade, and welcome to another video. In today's lesson, we're going to be talking about how to find the main idea as well as key details. So first things first, let's go ahead. Let's figure out what our Slipbot is. So students will be able to, this is your job, students will be able to determine the main idea of the text, meaning you'll be able to tell me what the main idea is, as well as identify, again, tell me, key details that support the main idea. So these are going to be your two main jobs throughout this week as we work on main idea. So what is main idea? Well, if you see my little visual here, you could probably guess that it is your ice cream cone. So if you look at your little ice cream cone, this visual, the cone is what's holding it all together. Without the cone, you would just have some scoops of ice cream that would be falling apart and they would just slip and slide everywhere. So the cone's really what's holding it together. And so when you make your ice cream cone, the main idea is always going to be first, and then everything else, your details, which are going to be your ice cream scoops, follow afterwards, and we'll talk more about that. So, what is a main idea? When you're thinking and you're reading your story, you're thinking to yourself, what is the text mostly about? If I'm reading the story, what is it mostly telling me? And also, what does the author want me to remember most? The author is trying to tell me something, and so what is that message the author is trying to make sure that I take away with me when I'm done reading? And now we need to figure out, well, how do I find the main idea? I have an idea of what I'm looking for, but how do I look for it? And so let's go ahead. There are going to be 3 steps. 1 before reading, 2 during reading, and 3 after reading. So let's go ahead and let's break down our steps. So before reading, this is going to be your story that you're going to be reading for today on Monday, and then you're going to be continuing to read it throughout the week. So you're going to be going ahead, you're going to be looking at the title of your story as well as pictures and other text features, and you're going to start predicting, what do you think the text is going to be about? So what do you think based off the title, based off pictures, maybe some headings? What do you think the text is going to be about? The title, the pictures, they're going to give you so much information about the main idea. I can already tell looking at this title that this article is going to be talking about different types of communities, that there's all different types of communities. And so I just got that straight from the title, so that I've already got so much information just from the title, and looking at the pictures, I see 2 different types of communities. And so keeping in mind, I'm already thinking that the main idea is going to be about different types of communities. And then during reading, so what happens during the reading? I'm going to be looking for key words that are repeated. So if I already am looking at this, I see the word community or communities is being repeated multiple times. I didn't even underline all of them. There's more here and here. So again, I know that already during my reading that that the main idea is really kind of focused around communities. And so I need to now dig a little bit deeper to say, what is the author trying to tell me about communities? And so just keep in mind that sometimes the main idea is stated in the first or last sentence or paragraph. And so just keep that in mind. Usually at the beginning or at the very end of a reading, that's where the author is really going to try and make their point obvious, the main idea obvious. So always check that first paragraph or that first sentence as well as that last paragraph and that last sentence. And then finally, after reading, make sure you ask yourselves these questions. What is the text mostly about? After reading, what was the thing that kept repeating over and over again? If I just had one sentence to write about this entire article, what would that one sentence be? What was the most important idea about the topic? So our topic is obviously communities, so what was the most important idea about communities? What was the author trying to say about communities? And then also start to think, what are the details that support the main idea? So let's go ahead and let's look back at our ice cream cone for key details. So our ice cream cone, again, our cone is the main idea. It's what holds the whole thing together. Without it, our ice cream falls apart. And so our key details are facts or details that prove or support the main idea. So we have our ice cream cone, and while our ice cream cone would taste delicious by itself, we want those supporting details or those ice cream scoops to make it even better, to help it, either taste better or also just kind of prove the point. So while we have the main idea is our point that we're trying to prove, those details or the ice cream scoops kind of help us prove that main idea or that point that the author is trying to make. And so now let's go ahead. We have this wonderful example. You can go ahead and pause the video right now to read this article. That is entirely up to you. I'm going to go ahead. I've read the article previously, and I'm going to show you how I was able to find the main idea as well as the key details on this article about snowflakes. So if you'd like to pause the video, you can go ahead and do so now. Otherwise, you can go ahead and keep watching. So I have this article about snowflakes, and so I went ahead and I went through and I read the article. And so then I went through and I went and underlined what I knew was the main idea. And again, usually the main idea is at the beginning or the end of your article or your paragraph. And so I went ahead and I found that this was the main idea. Snowflakes form in clouds, and their different journeys to the ground affect their shape and size, giving each snowflake its own unique identity. So the main idea of this paragraph is talking about how snowflakes get their unique shape and identity. And then I had to find details that supported that each snowflake, that the process of making a snowflake helps it create its own identity. And so I had to go through and find details. And so one detail I found was the shape of the ice crystal is determined by the temperature of the cloud. So now I know how the shape of a snowflake is made. It's made from the temperature of the cloud. So the cloud's temperature determines what the shape's going to be. My other detail I found was that the amount of moisture in the cloud determines the size of the ice crystal. So again, now I know another detail, that it's the moisture within the cloud that decides how big or how small the snowflake's going to be. And then finally, my last detail I found was that as each snowflake falls, it drifts through other clouds with different temperatures and moisture levels, which shapes each snowflake in a unique way. So although it's already been shaped based off of one cloud that it formed in, it's falling from the sky, and then it's falling in all these other different clouds. And so it's continuing to change shape until it finally reaches the ground. And so that was my main idea, and those were the key details I was able to find. And so now I have this graphic organizer, which you guys are going to have as well, and you're going to use for your reading that you are going to do. So we have our scoops of ice cream, which are our details again, and then we have our main idea, which is our cone. I personally like to do my cone first because that's the most important piece of the ice cream, right? Remember, we said whenever you make an ice cream cone, you always start with the cone, and then you add the scoops of ice cream on top. Right? You can't add scoops of ice cream to nothing, so you have to have the cone first. So I start with my main idea. And so my main idea is a snowflake's journey from a cloud to the ground helps to determine its unique identity. My first detail is the shape of a snowflake is determined by the temperature of the cloud. The moisture in the cloud determines the size of the snowflake. And then lastly, while falling, the snowflake goes through other clouds, which further shapes the snowflake. And that's going to be my main idea and the 3 supporting details that I found to prove my main idea. And so now it's going to be your turn. You're going to be reading the passage, All Kinds of Communities, and then you're going to complete your own organizer. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask your teacher. That's what we're here for. And otherwise, I hope you have a great rest of your day. Bye, 3rd grade.